a humorous story of a fool playing. But there is no better alternative, therefore we have to believe it. What we believe truth serves us as truth, and what we believe as false, it is false to us, and it is the same with every individual. It changes from person to person, and sometimes there is something in common between 100 or 1,000 persons. A group of people believe something in common, and it becomes the truth of that group. And here we call it a religion, we call it a political party, we call it a nation or a race or a country, we call it a custom or a habit or a tradition. This is the only truth of it. Behind this there is no truth of our truths. That's why the scriptures describe that the truth is broken into pieces, and everyone is having a splinter of truth in the form of his own individuality. No doubt he has a splinter of truth which can never serve the purpose of truth. Just as if I break the glass, and all of us have a splinter of the glass, it never serves us the purpose of glass. It gives us only the pride of having a splinter of the original glass. That is what we the human beings call truth. We decide truth and untruth according to the standards of our mind. One mind differs from another, and one man has his own truth different from the truth of the other. Two people try to understand truth in the same way. They have their differences and their common points intermixed. Like this, 100 people try to have a common understanding. If two people cannot have a total common understanding, how can 100 people have it? They have something in common as an excuse of truth. And we have the Hindu expressing his own truth, the Christian expressing his own truth, the Buddhist expressing his own truth, the English fellow expressing his own concept of truth, the Indian expressing his own concept of truth. One should remember this limitation when one wants to stress his own truth as the only truth. But at the same time, we have no other go except to follow the procedure. Everyone is forced to have his own concept of truth, about which he is very confident, and which he wants to force it upon others. Here we should find a way out and a proper way of behaving. We have to follow what we feel as truth, but we have to take two cares before we follow our own truth. One is to know how to use the instruments in us, the mind, the senses, the will, etc., the emotions, the suppositions, oppositions, everything. Everyone has his own instruments with him. For example, physical body, mind, senses, that are 5 in number, will, and the higher principles. As you go higher and higher from the 4th principle, you can feel the commonness with others. You can feel the commonness with the already existing truth. That is the truth of the law of matter, the law of mind, and the law of qualities. If your mind is working in identification with the first 3 principles, you will have your own understanding different from others. And the result is blind man and the elephant. Everyone has his own universe, though we have the common world. Everyone wants something else, though everyone wants the same food, drink, sleep and sex. So we live in a state of bondage when we live in the first three principles. This was called by the ancients self-conditioning. So everyone has his own individuality, which no one is ready to submit. It's more valuable than money, than everything. I am not ready to submit my beliefs to the beliefs of anyone. That is how the human beast lives. As long as the human mind, human consciousness exists within the first three principles, I have every right to eat according to my taste. And if Rudolph speaks of vegetarianism, I have every right to call him a fool. And the Indian has Indian way of eating. The Western has Western way of eating. The one believes the other something strange. Whereas everyone believes his own way, the quite natural way of doing things. This is how the world goes. But the law of evolution is working in nature, and after some time we are bound to travel to the fourth stage. But we cannot come directly. The path is like this. And each spiral, that is, each cross-section of the spiral includes many thousands of rebirths. We have to pass through only the spiral. Why? Because the mind wants only to pass through them. The secret is the mind is made up of three forces called dynamism, inertia and poise. Then only you will find the tube which we call mind. And the tube of mind makes spirals. And when we have a body, and when there is the respiration and circulation, then there is the awakening of the mind, and then we feel the existence of our mind. The moment the respiration stops, the mind disappears to us. It exists to itself, but it disappears to us. Like this, we have to travel through this spiral. And when we begin to enter into the fourth principle, we will be able to understand the littleness of our truth and untruth. And we begin to understand that a background is working with all its laws. And we have to take some decisions according to our own concept of truth. At the same time, remembering that our concept of truth is only a splinter of truth. We should never forget that what we believe as truth is only a splinter of truth. And you should be able to imagine the shape of the total cup that is broken, the cup which you can call the total truth. A splinter of which you are having. Someday you will be able to imagine to which part of the cup your splinter belongs. Until then, your truth is your truth and my truth is my truth. This is one of the purposes of evolution. This is what is called the fitness of things. there is an ultimate fitness of things towards which we are supposed to travel, and we travel only in a spiral way, and we should not grumble for the time lag that we are expected to pass through. If the child asks the father, "Father, how can I get my barb and then how can I shave?" The father can answer only, "Wait. Wait until you begin to grow the barb." The same thing with us also about the concept of truth. And now our duty is to know the nature of mind in terms of the three qualities, and be satisfied with what we understand as truth individually, and try to behave in such a way as to have the fitness of our truth with the truth of another, and have a truth for two persons, and then we can have a truth for three persons, then there is a truth for four persons. The training for this, it is said in the scriptures, is given by nature, by the natural instinct to have a companionship. See how living beings want to have companions. Not only human being. Any living being wants a companion. So nature has produced creation in couples and used the same fellows to reproduce through their copulation. We should try to understand the language of nature and the intention of nature, and try to protect the purpose and the function of nature. The sex instinct is given to us so that we can reproduce species and preserve them for nature. At the same time, certain amount of enjoyment is given to us because we are working for nature, and also certain amount of expansion and health is given to us through sex. But it is true only as long as we follow the law of fitness of things. If we understand the functions of nature and the purpose of sex, for example, and try to cooperate with nature, we will have the highest enjoyment of sex and better health produced through the act of sex. That is how the plants and the animals derive the benefit through sex. The human being is also expected to behave in the same way, but he is given the choice to do or not to do, whereas the animal and the plant is not given the choice. The animal can copulate only when it is proper season, and it has no instinct to play sex when it is not season. So too the plant. But the human being is given the choice because the fellow is a bit advanced in his understanding, and he can choose to behave according to the law of nature, or he can use sex only for his own enjoyment and nothing else. It is left to the human being. And those who use sex like the animals and plants, they understand more truths from nature, and they derive the real satisfaction and enjoyment of sex, whereas others have to get satisfied with their excitement and not enjoyment. Poor fellows, many people do not understand the difference between excitement and enjoyment. As a result of it, many people have only their excitement satisfied, not enjoyment, and they die in excitement without having the benefit of enjoyment. They call excitement enjoyment. But nature has left to us the choice, and when we try to understand the three qualities working upon our mind, we will understand that our mind is conditioned by the three qualities. And whatever we decide is conditioned by the three qualities. Because we decide what we like, but we can like only that which is permitted by the three qualities. For example, we cannot like what we dislike. We are as helpless as dogs chained. We are permitted to act only according to our likes and dislikes and not according to ourselves. But since we are satisfied with the present condition, we have no remedy for the present. Unless we have a further question, we cannot have a remedy. Suppose I am satisfied with the disease condition I am having. If the doctor comes and asks me if he can help me, I say, no, I am satisfied. Then the doctor cannot do anything. Similarly, nature waits for every one of us because it is helpless. When it has produced us as human beings on this earth, then we began to act. And there is the first disobedience and the story of the apple, which should be carefully understood. And then poor nature, it has to wait until we try to care for it. Until then, we are privileged to behave or misbehave. We are privileged to make ourselves healthy or unhealthy. We are privileged to protect ourselves or kill ourselves. That is where man stands in the threshold of evolution. There is a crisis as soon as the soul enters into the human kingdom. That is, the choice is given to the fellow. And he can permit himself to live or he can make himself die. He can protect himself or he can kill himself. He can eat or he can stop from eating. And he can eat when not needed. For example, when his friend's marriage is taking place, he has to attend a dinner for a second time. Whereas an animal cannot do it. A plant cannot do it. So the choice is given to the human fellow, because the human soul is human ego is sufficiently advanced to make a decision. And then the three qualities are given as three guides to us. In the plane of matter, we have the three qualities working. When inertia is working, we have what is called matter state. That too a solid state. And when dynamism is working, we have liquid. There is the movement. And we have air produced through the dynamic activity, and also fire. That is the third or the lowest fire by friction. We have to make a poise of it. When we have a poise between liquid and fire, we have what is called hot water and hot liquids. You can have a fire here and water in this hand, in a water in a container. You can pour this water on the fire. When the fire disappears, or you can place the container upon water and boil it to have coffee. Then you are having a poise between the two. Like this, you can manage with all the mechanics and the dynamics of the world. You can produce many wonders with the technology of nature. And we have advanced into the many amenities of electricity and electronics by finding out the poise between two elements in nature. So the three qualities exist in nature, operating in nature, They can be managed and manipulated to have a poise. The present achievements in the field of science and technology are good examples of manipulating poise. But unfortunately, they are working on the mental plane also. That's the reason why the mind is behaving in its own way. If the mind works according to inertia or dynamism, then we are always exposed to a danger of self-destruction. However much knowledge we have in manipulating it on the material plane, this is the material plane where we have achieved all the scientific, technical and technological achievements. But whether we enjoy them or not depends upon the quality of the mind but not the quality of the machine. If my friend makes a presentation of a good machine like this to me, it doesn't mean I behave better from tomorrow when I go to India. But in order to make a proper use of the machine, what is required is not a good quality of the machine only. What is required is a good quality of the mind. If I have a better mind, I can make a better use of this. Otherwise, I take it home and keep it to myself, speaking and recording and asking my wife and children to listen to the cassettes and no others. So, unless we find poise on the mental plane, as long as inertia or dynamism is working on the mind, we are always exposed to the danger of war, killing and self-destruction, because we can eat whatever we want, drink whatever we want, we can kill ourselves or we can protect ourselves, and then these things won't help us. Even if I am asked to stay in this room forever, I will not be able to use it. Just as, excuse me, 90% of the modern human beings are not able to enjoy the achievements they have achieved. See how people live in highly advanced cities with all the amenities at their foot and hand. They can have the light, the air conditioning and the fire behind their thumb. Food comes to them, drink comes to them, they need not go anywhere. Man comes to woman and woman comes to man. They need not go anywhere. But still we see people suffering from great fears, obsessions, complexes, depressions. Poor fellows going to the psychological advisors who are themselves helpless because they too have their own problems and they want to solve their own problems, and therefore they have the profession of psychological advisors. How can a blind man lead another blind? So we go and talk to him continuously. The office of the modern psychological advisor is the modern confession cabin. The ancients had the real confession cabin in the church. The modern unfortunate fellows have their confession cabin with the psychological advisor who is helpless himself. He listens and goes home and he has his own problems. A wife who is a beast having no obedience to him, and this fellow doesn't like his wife. They have temperamental and psychological inequalities. Blindly came together and married in a fit of sex. Again trying to get separated because they want a better life. Why? You see nations trying to fight against nations, nations destroying nations. This is because we have achieved pies over matter. We are dealing with matter with a mind for which we have not achieved pies. Unless we study the three qualities applied to mind and find out the art of training the mind, instead of dancing as a dog in the hand of the mind, unless we know the art of doing it, we cannot have a peaceful and safe living. Our achievements cannot help us. They can help us only when we have a mind which wants to do our work. Unfortunately, we are doing its work now. The mind wants certain things and we are following it. And the ancient scriptures have given us the three basic temperaments. For example, there is 100 units of dynamism, 100 units of inertia. He is sent out into the world to make his own combination and have a poise. When dynamism is working on your mind, you are having activity. You feel like doing something, going somewhere, meeting some friend, starting some new business, or going and joining a new job, to find a better boss, to find a better husband, a better wife. Like this, the mind is always too busy. And when inertia is working, you feel like continuing in the same state in which you are. If someone suggests you that something is better, you feel that you cannot cope up with the new situation. You feel too timid to face the new environment. New persons do better. Go to a new place though it is better. And sometimes you very much like to stick to home, not to go out at all, not inclined to do anything. The husband stops his job and sits at home drinking. He expects his wife to go and do the job and earn money for him. We see many heroes doing like that. So this is the result of inertia. And when the mind is applied to food, you will find a great difference when the mind is influenced by dynamism and when it is influenced by inertia. When it is influenced by dynamism, it wants strong and spicy foods. It wants very strong alcohol, very strong coffee, such things. And if the doctor suggests fruit juice, the fellow believes that the doctor is a fool. If the doctor discusses about dietetics and restoring health, the fellow cannot accept because he is under the spell of dynamism. Some people, they want to fast and not eat. Why? There is no answer. They are under the influence of dynamism, but they find their own answers. In some centuries, they find religious answers. That is, they want to fast in the name of God, as if God is interested in their not eating. God is not so cruel, if at all there is a fellow called God. And in another century, people try to believe that they want to keep up the beauty of the body by not eating. So, the fellow of every century has his or her own answers prepared and framed according to the influence he or she is under. So, the tendency to fast in the name of religion or medicine or ethics will be developed as a craving for a person who is under the influence of dynamism. And when the mind is under the influence of inertia, sometimes people grow into gluttons. They feel like eating, drinking, taking liters of beer. And we see people who take this much of opium and we see a wonderful medicine called cannabis. It is commercially called hashish, for which the policeman searches all the baggage in the customs. It took about 50 minutes when I got down in Geneva. An young smiling policeman began to search everything of our baggage, because somehow he had the suspicion that we are the sellers of cannabis under the guise of religion. So he searched for 1 full hour for the sacred cannabis we had. Finally he smiled and said, "You can go." So we eat opium, we eat cannabis, and people hunt for it, and the police fellows hunt for it, and the common man also hunts for it. This is what